The Torah started by saying that in order to draw down the hashgacha, the complete hashgacha of Hashem onto us, the complete level of divine providence where Hashem's eyes are on us and Hashem's hands are on us and we see Hashem in our lives, we have to break the taivas mammon, the improper desire for money. And that happens through tzedakah. And then we said that the whole aspect over here is that there's a cooling ruach that comes down and cools off the chamimus, the heat of the taivas mammon that's in our heart, the burning desire for money that's in our heart. And we brought many zoyar and pesukim to understand this on a deeper level. And then we pointed out how this is all connected to Mashiach and the Keteris, right? And then we brought down this concept that what happens here, the way that we do this is by connecting to tremendous tzaddikim. And how does it work? Is that the tzaddikim are able to take, when we connect and attach ourselves to a tzaddik, he takes our retzonos, our desires that are maybe not exactly where they should be, and elevates them up into the higher realms. And those desires are called nefashos, and by bringing them up there, they're called mayim nukvim. They're the feminine waters that begin to create the zivug. And when the zivug happens between kuchabrichu shechinte, then we draw down Torah. We draw down Torah. And that Torah is the very elevated Torah of Atika Stima. And that very elevated Torah of Atika Stima is also connected to this 4 levels of Torah, of Tanta. Tamim Nekudas Tagin is Anoisios, right? The musical notes and the vowels and the crowns and the letters, and how those 4 things are connected to the eye. And when we draw down the Torah, the 4 parts of the eye, the 3 colors and the pupil. And so when we draw down this Torah, we're also drawing down the eye of Hashem onto us. And we're bringing down that connection where Hashem is watching us. And Hashem's hashgacha, His divine providence, His guiding of our lives is felt and is sensed and is revealed on a higher level in our lives when we do this. Through connecting to the tzaddik and drawing down this incredible Torah and hashgacha pratis. So I just want to remind myself and us all that when we're thinking about this concept, remember we said, doesn't Hashem run everything? Right? Everything is run by Hashem, right? So what is it that we're increasing and drawing down? Is that there's 2 ways of living. There's life as a behema, an animal. There's life as a tree, where you're just a part of the world and just going with the flow, right? But then there's the mission of the Jewish people, and there's the mission of an individual Jew, and the tikkun that a Jew has to make, the corrections, the soul corrections, right, that a Jew has to make. Really anybody, but we're specifically talking about Jews over here. And that's a mission and a special path that we have to follow. That's our life goal, and every step we get closer to it, the closer we get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the closer we get to revealing light in our lives. So the divine providence, the extra hashgacha that's coming onto us, is the guidance on this mission, and is seeing the hand of Hashem guiding us through our lives and our growth and our becoming the people who we're supposed to become. Because we can make 2 choices. We can make one of 2 choices. We can just choose to go through life and enjoy the world as much as possible, not leave much of a mark, and that's it. Or we can choose to strive to be the best we can be and to make those tikkunim that we are supposed to make. Each one of us has a unique tikkun to make, a unique purpose, and unique abilities, and unique things that we can bring into the world. And if we want to follow that path and be those people, as opposed to being a piece of furniture in the world, right? That's when we need the help from Hashem, and Hashem to guide us on each part of our step, and to see His hand, and to see His eyes on us, right? So that's really what we want to draw down. That's what this connection is all about, which I think is just always, I like to remind myself about this, because we're talking about drawing down the divine providence of Hashem, which is everywhere, but it's a unique, more personal view of this divine providence that we want. L'chaim. Okay, so that's where we're holding. So that now we have the vision of Yechezkel. We did the first part, which is the lion, which I'll go through very quickly now because it's good to have the whole show here. Starting at 5. So Reb Chaim brings down an English translation, which I'll read quickly, and then we'll go on. Now it came to pass that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of Hashem. Also out of the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, Chayos. They had the face of an Adam, a man, the face of an Aryeh, lion, the face of a Shor, ox, and the face of a Nesher, eagle. And the living creatures, the Chayos, run and return, Ratzo v'shoev. And when the living creatures move, the Oifanim, wheels, go. For the spirit of the living creatures is in the wheels. And above the firmament that is over their heads is the likeness of a Kise, a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne is a likeness in appearance like an Adam, up above it. So this is the vision. And in this vision, there's the 4 faces of the Chayos, the 4 faces, which correspond to the man, lion, ox, and eagle. And then there's the throne and the likeness of the throne and the Adam that sits upon it, the person that sits upon it. These are the aspects of the vision. Now what Rabbi Nachman is going to do here is going to show us how there's 2 chariots. This is the vision of the chariot. All of these things make up this chariot, this vehicle, which is the way that the divine light comes down onto us. The way it travels, that's the chariot, right? So Rabbi Nachman is going to show us how there's an upper chariot and a lower chariot, an upper vehicle and a lower vehicle. One way of traveling, of moving in a certain direction spiritually, and one way of moving in a different direction spiritually. And how one of these chariots is going to correspond to the rising up, the ascension of the nefashos, of the souls, and of the desires upwards that the tzaddik brings up. And the other chariot is going to be the drawing down of the Torah, of this incredible Torah, which is connected to the eyes of Hashem, drawing down. So we're going to see how each one of these things, in the first place, is connected to this concept of Ratzon or Nefesh, and how, in the second place, how each one of these things is connected to the concept of Torah. And it's important, because he doesn't explain it clearly, that we understand this. 2 chariots, one going up, connected to nefashos and ratzon and desires, and one going down, connected to Torah and the eyes. Okay, everybody with me? This is going to be one of those classes where it's very in the text, and there's a few places where we'll pull some interesting stuff out, but we got to attach this all to the text. Okay, this is the aspect of the tikkun of the upper chariot and the tikkun of the lower chariot, the rectification of the upper chariot and the lower chariot. Yechezkel HaNavi, that through the chacham, the tzaddik, that takes the nefashos, the souls and desires, and elevates with them, and he draws down the mighty in which he trusts. Nistaknu shnei hamerchavos. He rectifies, the 2 chariots are rectified. These 2 spiritual paths are rectified. There's 4 chayos, which are in this aspect of nefesh, which means soul, kise, which means throne, v'yoshev al kise, and the one sitting on the kise, on the throne. And here's the 4 aspects of them. The first is Aryeh, lion. Ze bechinas arisi moiri im besami. That I gathered my myrrh, my myrrh, which is a type of spice, a type of perfume, with my besamim, with my other spices. Moiri, which means myrrh, is a lashon, ze bechinas maras nefesh, of bitterness. Maras nefesh means a bitter soul. This is the person who has the taivas mamon, the terrible desire for money in a negative way that's never satisfied. It's like having a bitter soul. Bechinas v'nafsha marala, like the pasuk says in Malachim, that her soul was embittered. Bechinas pagam hanefesh, and this is called a blemish in the soul. Pagam haratzon, which nefesh, as we explained before, the word nefesh also means ratzon, means desires, a blemish in the desires. When a person has this desire, this negative desire, that's called a blemish and a bitterness to the soul. So the gathering together of this, that's what the word Ari means in the sense, to gather that negative desire, that blemish desire, that bitter desire, together with all the good desires, the tzaddik elevates them up, raises them up to the upper worlds. I'm going fast because we already did this one. And now, when the person comes to the tzaddik, the Chacham Hador, the wisest person in the generation, with his nefesh, his soul, and his desire, and this Chacham Hador, this tzaddik of the generation, gathers together all of the desires and puts them together one by one, in order to lift them up, to bring them to the upper realms. And when he does that, he also lifts up those desires that have fallen desires. Meaning, there's a holy desire. We spoke about this a little bit last time. There's the desire for intimacy, which is holy, between a husband and wife, and tremendous connection of souls. And then there's that aspect in Tumah, which is all of the immorality that goes around the world these days, in every corner that we find. There's the holy desire for money, to be able to serve Hashem and do good things with, and help people, and take care of one's family in the right way. And then there's when that desire gets flipped over and becomes this bitter desire that I just need the money more and more. And I need opulence, and I need ostentatiousness, and I need status with my money, right? It's an impure desire. Those are fallen desires. So when the tzaddik elevates all the beautiful desires, he also takes those fallen desires together with them. That's the gathering together. That's the Ari, that's the lion. V'zeh b'chinas Aryeh, lashon leket. This is what it means, Aryeh over here, which is a lashon of leket, of gathering together. Shemalaket maras nefesh, that he gathers together the bitter soul, the bitterness of the soul. Hainu pagam hanefesh, which is the blemish of the soul, which is this desire, im besami, together with the good desires. Im haratzon atoiv, shemale reach toiv, that lifts up this good, pleasing aroma. That's the pleasing aroma. That's the first aspect, Aryeh. And we spoke about this last time, so we won't dive into it too much now. Ubechinas shor. The next is the shor, which is the ox. Shor shebenefesh. The shor, the aspect of ox that is the soul. Zeh haor hametzuchtzach shenitoysef banefesh machmas hakibutz. This is the light, the pure, clear light that is added to the soul because of all these things coming together. Which means he says over here, the uniting of the fragments of the soul. V'niskabetz pizurei hanefesh. Ve'az meir hanefesh beyoser. And when all these aspects of the soul come together, then the soul illuminates on a higher level, is lit up. Because when the desires are not illuminating, then the soul is in the realm of what's called, the pasuk calls, nefesh re'eva, a soul that hungers, a hungry soul, meaning it's not satiated, it's not full, it's not the way it should be, so it's not illuminating to the way it should be. So when we have desires that are broken and fallen and have become tumah, we are not illuminating to the what level we should be. Because in order to illuminate properly, in order to be a source of light in the world, all of our desires have to line up, come together, and make a big ball of spiritual energy that's bringing good into the world. And when some of those desires are darkened and are going into the wrong places, they don't come together to illuminate. Imagine, just like think for a second, right, of a holy person who's always aiming in the right direction and who has good character traits and has emunah and is learning and is praying and is connected to Hashem, right? That person, when you meet them, they're like a light. And then you go and you see some other people who are not holding in this realm whatsoever, and you feel like a letdown, like, wow, what a difference between these people, right? So when we have all of these aspects of our soul and of our desires together, we're a much bigger illuminator. And when we don't have that, it's called nefesh re'eva, a hungry soul, because the soul is not fulfilled. It's not complete. Yeah? Ki ikar hara'av machmas heder ha'or, because the main aspect of hunger, now listen to this, this is wild stuff, is because of an absence of light. Kamesha amru, chachamenu zichronim livracha, like Chazal say, in the Gemara in Yuma, vaya'ancha vayarivecha vayechilcha es haman, that I afflicted you and made you hungry and fed you the man, the manna, right? Everybody knows what man is, manna, right? The spiritual food that came down. So the special nature of the man that came down when we were in the desert was that it was just like this stuff that looked like seed, right? And it was the same all the time. And when a person ate it, it gave them everything they need. It was like the original multivitamin. but it gave a person everything they could possibly need, and the Midrashim say that according to a person's spiritual level, they were able to experience taste of the man to whatever their desire would be. So someone who was on a very high spiritual level, they would be able to taste whatever they wanted, right? You know, whatever your favorite food is. You know, the Indian butter chicken you could taste with the man. Maybe a nice, seriously thick, you know, medium rare steak, aged for like a month. Anyone getting hungry? No? Whatever it was. What was that? With cheese. Why not? Why not? So anyway, but it looked like a powdery, like white kind of grains, sort of. That's how it looked. So what's the story over here? So Mikan, so the Gemara says, Mikan she'asuma eno saveya. From here we understand that a blind person is never satiated. A blind person cannot become satiated from their food. Now, I hope there's no one here who has any situations of blindness or who has people close to them who are blind who would be offended by this. But let's understand it and see what it means. So, one of the ways we're understanding this pasuk, that he afflicted us and made us hungry and fed us the man. So one way to look at it is that the pshat is that this is how we were in the desert. We had this magical food that did everything we needed, and was like spiritually satisfying and could taste like anything, but we were hungry and afflicted, and we're not happy with the man, right? So the Gemara says from here we see that a blind person can't be satiated, meaning there is an aspect of eating food that is connected to the appearance of the food in front of us, right? So I think it's very, very pashut. We all know that, anyone who's involved in cooking at all, when you make a dish that has different colors and has different textures, and right, it's much more appetizing, right? But what we're saying over here is that if a person doesn't see the food that they're eating, it doesn't fill them, it doesn't give them the same satiety that they would have if they were able to see the food. There's an aspect of the vision on the food that changes the way that we relate to it. Ki ikar hasoiva machmas haor sheyira be'einav, because the main satiety that we have from the food is from the light that we see in our eyes from it. Vayadei she'eino roya, and if we don't see it, ein nismale nafshay, our soul is not filled up, is not satiated. Hainu ratzoinai, meaning our ratzoin, the soul is ratzoin, is desire. Ki toiv mareinayim mahalach nefesh, because Koheles says that it's better what we see with our eyes than that which the wandering of the soul. The Gemara explains this. What this means is that if a person has money in their hands, a person appreciates the money in their hands more than the things that they use the money for in order to live their lives. Meaning like this: there's a certain type of enjoyment, of pleasure that a person gets from holding a few $100 bills in their hand than they get from going out that day and buying groceries and putting gas in the car and whatever else they have to do. Yeah, that's the stuff that they really need. But the money in the hands that you get to look at and see it gives a certain pleasure that is, in a certain sense, a higher level than the actual stuff you buy with that money that you need. Right? This is the connection of the eyes, the gaze of a person to the concept of desire. Everybody with me on this? Do we have a feeling for this idea? Do we get it? Yeah? Anyone disagree?
It's like if you have like money in the bank account, so you can't really see that money in the bank account. If you use your Visa card, you can't feel how much money is being spent. If you actually give a $20 bill, and then that's the $20 bill,
right.
You feel that there's a much greater loss.
There's a big difference, right? Remember that story I told you guys a while ago about the person who needed the $5,000? So when they paid back the money, the $5,000, they handed me $5,000 in 20s. And when you hold $5,000 in 20s in your hand, it's much different than a check someone gives you for $5,000. When you see it, right? The eyes have a whole different experience over here. So, okay. And when a person clarifies his soul, purifies his soul with the clearness of this light, of all the desires coming together in a positive way, then the rest of the pasuk comes into play. V'nefesh re'eva, the soul that hungers, milei toiv, is filled with goodness. When our desires are elevated and we place our desires in the right place and that light comes, all that illumination comes, right? Then our soul feels satiated. Then our soul is filled up and illuminated. So just think for 1 second. I don't know individually who has experienced this type of thing. But just, maybe you have, and if you have, you'll really feel this strongly. I'm sure we've all experienced it in one way or another. When we have a strong desire that is not aimed in the right direction, if it's the desire for money, and when it gets to be the desire for money to the extent that it's embittering us, and it's driving us in a very, very negative way, right? Or it could be a desire for something else. It could be a desire for physical pleasures that is taking a person down the wrong path. Or it could be a desire for the wrong type of emotional connection to a person, right? It could be any of these desires. When they're strong and powerful and they're aimed in the wrong direction, a person has a general feeling of darkness, of negativity. Life is not good. And if I only had this one thing, then I'd be happy, right? If I only had this money, then everything would be fine. Then I'd be happy. And if I only had this, then I'd be happy, right? That's the line. And it embitters a person, and it puts them into darkness. And anyone who's existed in this realm before, I know I have before, when you feel like that, your whole world is dark, right? And the spiritual lights don't light up when we're existing in this realm. Masha'in kain, when we gather together these ritzonos and we elevate them, and when that desire that we have is clarified with this clear light of the concept of shor, of the ox, which we'll explain in a second, right? Now all of a sudden there's clarity, there's illumination in the world. I'm living a different life. I'm happy. I'm content, I'm spiritually strong, with emunah, life is different, right? This is this is the nefesh re'eva, that soul that was hungry, milei toiv, is now filled with goodness. Bechinas v'hisbia b'tzachtzachos nafshecha, which he will satiate you with your clearness, tzachtzachos, pureness, clearness. This is the aspect, ze bechinas shor. So how does this relate to the ox? That's the big question that everyone wants to know. Clear vision. How does it relate to ox? So, shor is actually a lashon of histaklus. We'll see if we can see how. Shor, shin vav resh. has a connection to vision. Bechinas mare einayim mahalech nefesh. Like we said over here, that the eyes, the better is the vision of the eyes than the wandering of the soul. So there's a pasuk that says in Devarim, Ashurenu, I gazed upon it. Ashurenu, I gazed upon it, but I was not, even though I was not close to it. Ashurenu, this lashon of shur over there, shin vav resh, is vision, gazing, right? So shur is a concept of gazing. Ari, these are all, by the way, another point where we can see the total amazing wisdom of Rabbi Nachman. We're now talking about the word. Did anyone ever hear, even you Hebrew experts, very learned, I'm talking to you, ever hear about the lashon of ari, like a lion, having to do with gathering? Never, I'm sure. Maybe you did, but I never heard of it like this before. Or shor, having to do with a lashon of histaklus, of vision? No way. Maybe you did. Okay, next. The nesher, eagle. So once again, we're connecting all of these existences to nefesh and to soul and desire. The nesher, b'bechinas nefesh. So what's the eagle connected to the nefesh, connected to soul and desire? Ze hachidush shenischadesh hanefesh ba'aliyasa b'bechinas ibur. This is a bit Kabbalistic complex. We won't spend too much time on this, but this is the renewal, the newness that the soul achieves when it goes up in the aspect of ibur. I'll just very, very quickly. Kabbalistically, as we know, we talk about all the time that the Kabbalistic realms are the reality, and our physical bodies are just a hint and a mirror to what's really going on up there. And just like there are zivugim, relations that happen between masculine and feminine spiritual entities that correspond to the same on the physical plane, there's also iburim, there's also pregnancies that happen. And those pregnancies grow spiritual energy that is then birthed and brought down into existence, right? So when these spiritual energies go up, when the tzaddik elevates the souls and desires of those who are connected to him, and they make that zivuk happen, there's an ibur that's going to happen on some level where something new is going to be created and then brought down. So the nesher has to do with renewal. And the renewal of this path that we're speaking about of desire and soul is the fact that when our desires go up and they get involved in this zivug, there's a new energy created from that tikkun, from that rectification that then is drawn down. That's the energy that we experience that comes down in the form of the Torah and the hashgacha, right? So over here, b'chinas ibur, v'zeh b'chinas nesher. Why is a nesher? Why is the eagle connected to the concept of renewal? The pasuk says in Tehillim, how do we see this? Tischadesh kanesher nu'uraichi. Your youth is renewed like that of an eagle. There's an aspect of eagle that has to do with chidush, with newness, with renewal. The eagle is connected to this. Now, I'm not exactly sure how, in the physical realm, the eagle is connected to renewal and newness. If anybody knows here, I'd love to hear it. But I didn't think about it until right now. But maybe at the end, someone will have thought of something, how an eagle is connected to renewal. I'm interested. Okay. So that's how the eagle is connected to renewal, and which is connected to the soul and the desire aspect of our pathway. The Adam shebenefesh. Now, what about the Adam, the man of this pathway that we're talking about? Ze bechinas vayhi ha'adam lenefesh chaya. This is like the pasuk says in Bereshis that the Adam will be a nefesh chaya, a living soul. So the Adam is called nefesh, right? The Adam is called a soul. I mean, this is obvious to us, right? Ki Adam bechinas miskene vatire. Because the concept of Adam, of human, is a combination of the poor and the wealthy, the impoverished and the wealthy. Kamosha Kosov, like it says in the Hakdamah to the Zohar, the introduction to the Zohar says like this: Nase Adam b'tzalmenu kidmuseinu. The pasuk says in Bereshis, Parshas Bereshis, Hashem says, Nase Adam B'tzalmeinu kidmusenu. Let's make man in our image and in our likeness. Right? So the Hakdama to the Zohar says, Nasa Adam B'tzalmeinu Atire. That's wealthy people. Kidmusenu Miskenei. In our likeness, that's referring to impoverished people, poor people. There are wealthy people and poor people that are made in the image of Hashem. Altogether. And when the tzaddik gathers together these nefashos, these desires, then they are in the aspect of Adam, of one. You need both sides. Nefashos gedolos uketanos, the big nefashos and the little nefashos. The big desires and the little desires. Bechinas miskanei v'atire, the aspect of impoverished and wealthy. Meaning what? What does it mean, impoverished and wealthy? It means that in this aspect of tzedakah, there is always a mashpia and a makabel. One person is the giver and one person is the receiver. One person is a gadol and one person is a katan. One person is a rebbe and one person is a talmud. One person is mashpia and makabel. This is a pattern in all of creation, in all of existence, right? There's always going to be aniyim, poor people in the world, and the aniyim need to live their lives as an ani, as part of their tikkun. They need to live their lives as an ani, and by living their lives as an ani, with emunah and with simcha, they are making a tikkun. That's their path, that's their tikkun that they have to make, right? Doesn't mean it has to be their whole lives. Could be someone has to live part of their lives as that. But there's always aniyim in existence that need to be aniyim mitzad themselves, for their own cheshbon between them and Hashem. But they're also there because the ashir has to be able to be tested and make rectifications and tikkunim by being a good person and giving tzedakah and helping that person, right? And maybe that person who is an ashir will at some point become an ani. But the point is, they always have to coexist. There always has to be aniyim and ashirim, wealthy people and impoverished people. That's the way it's going to be. And there's always got to be a rebbe and a talmud, a rav and a student, right? A teacher and a student. It always has to be like this. So, in a certain sense, there's wealthy and impoverished, gedolim and ketanim, and this in different aspects. We all have both of those in us, right? In one way, a person can be a gadol, and in another way, that same person can be a katan. You can have one person who's extremely smart. Remember what we said? That you can have someone who learned a lot of Torah and is a Talmud Chacham, but is a Rasha Gamor. Right? You can have someone who's a Talmud Chacham and a Rasha Gamor, a complete Rasha. They have tremendous brilliance, very smart mind, pasmada. They learn a lot. Wow, beautiful qualities. Yeah, but it's a terrible person who's mean and cruel and angry and all of these qualities. So a gadol in one way and a very serious katan in another way. And you can have another person that you meet, sweetest person you ever met. Beautiful person who makes you smile and is always willing to help. I have someone in my mind like this right now. Always willing to help and just a special, wonderful person, right? But they may not have the greatest intellect. They can't really learn. I know a few people who are special needs people. And I'm close to a number of people like this. And they are, so they can't learn so well. They can't sit down with a Gemara. And, but whenever I ask for help, they're always, literally always, the first ones to respond. And they're whenever they're around people, they always make people happy, right? They are gedolim, tremendous gedolim, great, amazing people. Yeah. So people are gedolim and ketanim in different ways. We're all different.
They learn in different ways.
What?
They learn in different ways. It's not that they can't learn, but they learn in different ways.
Yep. Very good. They can't study in the traditional way that we call studying. In the traditional way.
They study in the way that they do. We study in the way that we do.
Right.
Nothing traditional. Everyone has a tough kid.
100%. Am I making sense here? Yeah? So, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? We're talking about that there are different ritzonos and different nefashos, different desires and different souls. And there's some that fall into the realm of toiv. And there's some that fall into the realm of nefulos, of fallen desires and souls. And when they're all gathered together, that's what we're talking about over here. So, Adam, specifically, Rabbi Nachman is telling us from the introduction of the Zohar, we see there's always different types of Adam. In one way, they're high, and in one way, they're fallen. And gathering together of them all is what the tzaddik is doing. Okay, v'oifanim. The oifanim are a type of malach, a type of angelic existence, but is also called the wheels of the chariot, right? Hein hagufim. These are the bodies of the people that we're talking about, the nefashos, the souls and the desires. Ki ikar pe'ulosehem shel hagufim einu elamin achius shebenefesh. The bodies do not have, our bodies do not have their own movement, their own action. They have nothing without the life force of the soul that's within them. Right? When the life force and the soul is gone, the body stops. Only with the life force and the soul inside this person does the movement happen and the actions happen. Sha'nefesh mara pu'alaseha ayedei evrei haguf. The nefesh shows its actions. It executes its actions through the limbs of the body. Ve'en laguf shum tenua atzmis. But the body has no movement on its own. Va'kol ayedei koichas hanefesh. Everything is through the power of the nefesh. And this is what the oifanim are. The Kise, next, the throne. Shebebechinas nefesh, the throne aspect of the soul. Hu nefesh hachacham sheniskase. This is the soul of the chacham, of the tzaddik. Sheniskase, which is concealed. Bebechinas yikara hi mipnimin. The soul of such a tzaddik, such a wise person, is called more precious than penimin. What are penimin? In this sense, peninim means pearls. That's the direct translation. But on another level, Chazal say, Chazal say, Mikoyin Gadol, the Koyin Gadol, who is often used as a paradigm for tzaddik. The Kohen Gadol went inside to the Kodesh Kadoshim during Yom Kippur, the Holy of the Holies, the most inner aspect of existence, the closest to Hashem, went inside. So the tzaddik is this aspect of panimim, of innerness, of inner connection. Ki machmas shenefesh hachacham hu yakar, and it's more precious than panimim. Since the soul of the chacham is yakar, is tremendously precious. Hu niskase lifnai v'lifnim. It is concealed in the innermost part of the person. V'chol hanafashos nasin levushin etzla, and all of the other souls become the clothing of that precious tzaddik soul. Like we say, there's a tzaddik nistar, a hidden tzaddik. One aspect is that one definition of the hidden tzaddik is that there are tzaddikim that we don't know about. The other aspect is that the tzaddik, no matter what we see of the tzaddik, we don't know the ultimate greatness of the tzaddik that is hidden deep inside. And if we remember, all of the existences, the spiritual existences, we don't go, I think this is a different shir that we talked about this, but 1 second, let me see how far we are, how far we have to go here. Okay, why is innerness, panemius, considered holy? Why is it inner? Why isn't it that and the holy Torah, the Kabbalistic, deep Hasidic Kabbalistic Torah is called Panemius HaTorah, the inner aspect of Torah. Why isn't it called the Torah Elias, the high level Torah? Right? So the emes is like this. This is a Gavaldic concept. Mamish, totally amazing concept. That if we can remember this Kabbalistic concept of creation, and that there's the vacated space, the Chalal Apanu is created, right? And the circular versions of of holiness fill up that place. And then a pipeline of divine light begins creation and comes down. It's a pipe. It's called a pipe. Once again, not physical, totally spiritual, Kabbalistic concepts we're talking about. Don't apply physicality to these whatsoever. The pipe comes in, called the Kav HaYashar. And that first level that comes in and goes all the way down to the bottom of its Malchus, its lowest level. And at this lowest level place, that's where it ends. The next lower level of existence that comes in, that filters out the light of Hashem more, doesn't come in at a different height level. Rather, it comes and surrounds that. It makes like a cylinder on top of that cylinder, just with the top of it revealed. And then the next level comes down and makes a cylinder around that cylinder, as if, in the Lashon of Kabbalah, it's levushim. It's garments that go over top, covering the highest level of the light of Hashem, right? So as we get, and each one of those garments limits the light of Hashem so that the lower levels can receive it. Because if it was too bright, it would just vaporize everything, right? Already familiar with this? I know we talked about this a few times. But it's not that there's the low level where we are in this world, and then way up in the sky somewhere, that's where Hashem is. That's where the highest level of holiness is. It's not like that. It's that as we peel back the layers within where we are right now, we peel back the layers of us. We take off the layers of klipa, of spiritual dirtiness, and we take off that garment, right? We get more inward and closer to the true essence of holiness, which is more inward, right? So the real holiness, this is totally amazing and mind-blowing, the real holiness of a Jew is not that they travel from where they are somewhere up closer to Hashem. It's that we remove layers of spiritual impurity and get closer to our own inner essence, which is what's called a chelek elika mimal, a piece of Hashem, right? It's inside us right now. It's where we are right now. We don't have to travel somewhere. As we get closer to Hashem and we shed our spiritual impurities and our physicality and our materialism and all those negativities, it's like we're taking off layers and getting closer to the inherent holiness that we have within ourselves, which is totally amazing. And so, this is one aspect. He's not saying this. I'm adding this on over here. This is another aspect of why a tzaddik, who is the most in touch with those deep levels of existence, is an inner person, is panimin, is yakara hi mi panimin, right? Because he's shed the most levels of clothing, the most levels of garments that are covering up his holy essence of light, and gotten down to the inner nature, right? So this is what we're striving for, by the way. Every time we learn, every time we do mitzvahs, every time we work on a character trait that we're working on, we are shedding one of these levels and getting closer to our inner nature, taking off a garment. It's tremendously powerful because it means, don't forget, Chevra, that Hashem made us this way, that your essence, each individual person's essence, is absolutely pure and holy. And the only reason why it struggles and why it faces difficulties is because there are layers of dirt covering it. And those layers of dirt come from our purpose. They come from all of the abuse that we've endured, the difficult times we've experienced, the pain, the suffering, the betrayals, all of that stuff puts another layer on us, and another layer, and another layer, covering up that pure essence. But Hashem made it so that our essence is the most holy thing in existence. So this is our avodah, is to keep taking off the garments. Okay, weiter. V'ha'adam yeshev al Kise, and the man that's sitting on top of the Kise. So that was the lashon of Kise, of the throne. Kise, meaning from a lashon of covering up. V'ha'adam hayeshev al Kise, and the person that sits on the Kise, that sits on the throne, who daitoi shel hachacham. This is the das, the inner intellectual aspect of the chacham, of the tzaddik. Higam b'loi das nefesh lo toiv, because also without das, nefesh lo toiv. So two things here. First of all, the Adam sitting on top of the Kise means he's sitting on top. The top level is always the intellectual levels, right? So this is the Das of the Chacham. And Das is connected to Nefesh, to soul, right? Like the Pasuk says in Mishlei, Das, ki below Das, Nefesh lo toiv. Without the Das of the Chacham, the Nefesh will not be good. We cannot make these tikkunim without the Nefesh and the Das of the Tzaddik. It's all a piece of the puzzle over here. So this is it. This is all of those concepts of the Kise, of the Merkava, of the chariot, as they relate to the aspect of elevating of the nefashos, of the souls and of the desires of the people that connect to the tzaddik. Okay, that's how they all connect. And now we're going to see how all of these same things connect to the Torah. And this one, I believe, we will get through pretty quickly. And then we might have to stop before we move on to the story that explains it. Okay. V'yesh arba chayos b'Torah. Now, these four chayos, these four existences that we talked about, the lion, the witch, and the just kidding. The lion and the ox and the eagle and the man, they also connect to the concept of Torah. Let's see. Aryeh sheb'Torah. So where do you see the Aryeh, the lion in the Torah? Ki Torah nikra oiz. The Torah is called strength. Oiz, power, strength. Hashem oiz la'amo yitain. Hashem gives oiz to his nation. And the Gemara explains that refers to the Torah. The Torah is called oiz, strength. The Torah is our strength. That's where our strength comes from. Uma oz me'ari. In Pasuk says in Shoftim, what is stronger? What has more oiz, strength than the ari, than the lion? So we see the Torah is strong like the lion is strong. The Torah is the ari. V'shor sheb'Torah. Where's the ox in the Torah? This is now we're talking about the chariot that's drawing down the Torah, right? The shor sheb'Torah, the ox of the Torah. Ze b'chinas bi sarim yashiru. So through yashiru. So through me, meaning the Torah, rulers will rule. So there's this concept of sarara, which is also sometimes called sharara, meaning rulership, right? And the Torah, the pasuk tells us in Mishlei that rulers get their power to rule, their rulership from the Torah. The Torah gives rulership. I can't think of a better word for that. And that is connected to the words shin resh, sin resh, shor. The same thing. V'nesher sheb'Torah. Where do we see nesher, the eagle, in the Torah? Ze b'chinas chidushim d'oraisa, b'chinas yischadish k'nesher. Very simple. Everybody's heard of tell me a chiddush in Torah. Chidushei d'oraisa, chidushim in Torah. All of Rabbi Nachman is chidushei Torah, by the way. He's a tremendous, unbelievable creative genius, right? Tremendous creative powers, artistic, creative genius powers. That's my sentence for today. Artistic, creative genius powers. It's Rabbi Nachman in a nutshell today. So tischadish kanesher, and that's we saw from the pasuk before that the eagle has an aspect of renewal to it, which you're all going to tell me afterwards. I see people left messages. That's the nesher. V'adam sheb'Torah. Where's the man Adam in Torah? Ze b'chinas zois Torah, zois haTorah, Adam. So the pasuk says in Parshas Chukas, zois haTorah. This is the Torah. Adam ki yamus ba'oil, says the pasuk over there. But that section of the Torah, which is darshaned by many of the holy Talmidei Chachamim, is zois haTorah Adam. The Torah has its connection to Adam. V'yesh ba kalos v'chamuros, and just like we said in by the Zohar, the introduction of the Zohar, that man has wealthy and impoverished, has gedolim and ketanim. So too in the Torah, there's kalos v'chamuros. There's things that are chamur, that are strict, and there's things that are kal, that are lenient. There's strictures, there's leniencies, there's din, and there's chesed. Right? There's all these different aspects in the Torah also. So all of these four aspects are also connected to the Torah, to the second chariot, the drawing down of these things. The Kise of b'chinas Torah. So what's the throne now of b'chinas Torah? Heim devarim shechisa atik yomin. These are the things that the atik yomin, which really sort of means Hashem, a very high spiritual emanation of Hashem, covered these things up. We're talking about the Sisrei Torah, the secrets of Torah. V'hem mechasim es atzman b'sipurei Torah, and they're hidden within the stories of the Torah, right? Everybody knows that the stories that the Torah teaches are not just stories. They have the depths of all depths, right? Every aspect of existence is held within the Torah. You know what's said about the Vilna Gaon? Everybody knows who the Vilna Gaon was, right? I think they call him the genius of Vilna in English. Even, by the way, in Lithuania now, I think they have a coin with the Vilna Gaon on it, the Gaon of Vilna. They have stamps, they have monuments, they have everything. Like, even the Goyim of Lithuania, he's like their like main tourist attraction, right? He was such a genius. Anyway, the Vilna Gaon was a huge Kabbalist, a major Kabbalist, a huge tzaddik, huge Kabbalist. And he knew literally every single aspect of Torah. His commentary on the Talmud is like insanely genius. Do you want to know how genius it is? You might think that a genius commentary on the Talmud would be very long-winded and take up a lot of space. The commentary of the Vilna Gaon on the Talmud, on the Shulchan Aruch in particular, is just like pointing to one spot. He'll say, yeah, look here, look here, look here, and look there. That's it. Because he just knows the whole entire breadth of everything and says, yeah, connect all the dots, that's all. He doesn't even explain anything because it was on such a high level, right? So it's said about the Vilna Gaon, this is totally wild, that at the end of his life, he only had with him and only learned from a Chumash. Just from the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses. Why? Because for him, when he read a pasuk in the Torah, he wasn't just reading the verse and the story. He saw everything that was connected to that verse from every aspect of Torah. The entire Mishnah, the entire Talmud, all of the commentaries from creation till he was alive and probably beyond, and all of the Kabbalah on every level, he just was able to see that as he read the simple words of the Torah. Can you imagine? Why am I telling you this? Because this is what we're saying. This is what the Torah is, right? There's the covered level of the Torah, which is hidden within just the words of the Torah. It's covered up. That's Kise. The lashon of Kise, of throne, also means mechase, to cover up. You hear? V'yoshev ala Kise, who's sitting on top of the throne, on top of that thing that's covered? Hu atik yomin. That is atik yomin, which means, literally translated, ancient of days. Which, once again, you could just say refers to Hashem, but it refers to a very high level emanation of Hashem. V'atik yomin yasiv, like it says in the pasuk in Daniel, that the Ancient of Days was sitting. Va'ofanim shebetorah, and what's the ofanim? Those are like the wheels that we call. Hein gufei halachas. Those are the actual bodies of the halacha, because we connected ofanim to body before, and now we're connecting it to the gufei halachas. So that is the end of connecting all of these aspects of this prophetic chariot vision of Yechezkel HaNavi to the raising up of the souls, everyone connected to souls and desires, and the drawing down of Torah, everyone connected to Torah. And just like one is a chariot, a vehicle for spiritual ascension, that's one of the chariots. The other chariot is a vehicle for the drawing down, the descension of spiritual energies down to us. That's the rectification of the one chariot, of the upper chariot, and the rectification of the lower chariot. My time got cut off. I think we're out of time right now, right? Yeah. So it's too bad because it would be very. You know what? Yeah. Okay. We'll start next week. It's kind of a funny place to stop, but we'll. I actually have some other things I have to get to right now, so we'll stop now. Anybody have any questions or comments? Any eagle comments? Let's see what we got over here. The eagle does not lose all of its feathers at one time. It's a gradual process, continually renewing the feathers. Beautiful. So many birds lose all their feathers and then, or most of them, and then they renew them, molting. The eagle is constantly in a state of feather renewal. Thank you, Esther, for that. That's awesome. Okay, so we have some from Olam Hazeh, some indications of how the eagle is bird of renewal. Any other comments or questions? Everybody have an amazing night, an amazing Shabbos, and an amazing week. And we'll see you all next week. I love you all. Bye.